Grab a seat, order your drink, and welcome to the brightest center in the galaxy for all things Star Wars Expanded Universe, and whatever else may blow in the door. You're listening to the Callum's Cantina podcast, and I'm your host, Callum. No matter if you're a seasoned bounty hunter of lore, or just looking for a good story, you've stumbled into the right cantina. Today we're returning to the topic that we've started this podcast on, what I call the Essential Expanded Universe Collection. We're talking about those core tales, the legendary sagas that every EU fan needs to experience in order to understand the main events of each era. So pull up a chair and let's unravel the legends. So, if you're just joining us for part 3 of the Essential Expanded Universe Collection right here, then last time we discussed and came up with the list up to right at the start of the Rebellion era. It includes The Force Unleashed as the last thing we talked about chronologically wise. But we also come off a side tangent where we found that the holiday special is indeed essential. If you're interested in that, go check out the previous episodes, I recommend that. But otherwise, let's continue the discussion right here.
Yeah, okay. Dark Forces, do we count the novellas?
That's what I was thinking. At least the first one, because you get the sealing of the Death Star plans.
Right, and that's also, I mean, and that's also in the game as well. Yeah. So I wasn't sure.
So I was thinking to take the novellas and the novels as a more primary source than the games, as far as your understanding of the universe and events.
Okay, my counterpoint of these being essential is that we don't need to see Kyle Katarn steal the Death Star plans because we have the A New Hope radio drama, which shows how Leia gets the Death Star plans, and the Han Solo trilogy that shows how they get the Death Star plans from the Imperial facility and then transmit the plans.
That's fair.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense too. I think Kyle Katarn shows up later with the Valley of the Jedi.
He does,
but that doesn't matter.
Yeah, it does connect back to the Darth Bane trilogy, which we do have the thought bomb going on.
I did include Dark Forces Jedi Knight for the record,
but we don't need the callback to it. Like, we already know that happened.
Yeah,
right.
We have the resolution and the dispersion of the Soul
need chapter. To. My only issue is that we need to establish the character of Kyle Katarn because he is kind of important later on.
He's not that important, though. I mean, like, everybody sees him as this Chuck Norris of the galaxy, but he really doesn't do much.
Yeah, now that you're saying it, like, his role's kind of side character.
He did take a backseat a lot later on.
Yeah, like, he has his moment in his games / novelization things.
Yeah.
But then he just kind of exists in the background, and it's like, what the hell was he doing all of these years? Like, couldn't he have been helping?
And assumedly, he was just part of the Jedi at the Academy.
Look, he got the Death Star plans. You can basically retire then. Like, that's fine.
I guess.
I mean, his last he's still around. He's mentioned as part of the council in Legacy of the Force and Fate of the Jedi. Yeah. He's part of the council, but other than that, he's not really. Yeah, I think I overestimated his value later.
It's because of the mythos of Kyle Katarn that we.
I think that's what it is.
Do you think it's important to be able to get his Death Star plan retrieval because then we include the Death Star novel, which essentially retcons it all together to work?
I didn't even include the Death Star novel.
Yeah, the Death Star novel we included with the Reeves verse.
That's why I still have.
I didn't think about that.
So. I guess that's fair to do it that way, and if we do it that way, then it's just the novelizations, but not the video games.
Yeah.
Because again, the Death Star novel is another one of those ones that just really highlights what everyone else is going through at the time. So
So I guess we can include them just on the basis of we really won't know the full like why is there a reason to retcon various Death Star plan retrievals if we don't know there's various Death Star plan retrievals.
Yeah. At the same point,
true.
I could just include the first Dark Forces novella, or you can leave it off and just have Death Star as the basic explanation for any multiple bits of plans and whatnot. And
that's fair. That's fair. I think just do Death Star, and that should do it.
Because I think that also is essential in some understanding of how the Death Star plan stuff work, because then you avoid the misconception of why do we have all these different versions of the plans? They had different things going on.
Yeah, there's that one like PSP game, like what is it, Last Alliance, Dark Alliance, something like that,
Lethal
where
Alliance,
like
I
it's
think.
Lethal Alliance, yeah. There's that Twi'lek chick that's stealing Death Star plans, like.
So, notably around the Death Star novel, because the third Han Solo trilogy book comes up, and I've just put a little indicator that that's where it turns up, because we lump the trilogy together. That goes straight into A New Hope.
Yeah, it pretty much goes right from Death Star to A New Hope. And I put the audio drama for the essential part.
The radio drama.
Because the novelization is crap. I've read that. It's the only thing you get. The only benefit you get is a bit more of you get R2's brain. You get R2's thought process a little bit, which is funky. And I
was going to say the only thing you get's a couple of photos in the middle. So I'm glad you have his brain.
Yeah,
that's about all you get.
Then, I do have the note here to do a correction from earlier. Apparently, this is after A New Hope. That's when the Rebellion comic run turns into the Empire comic run.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So,
it.
We mentioned it earlier, but then it would have been a little bit early to actually add it in the list chronologically.
Yeah.
And so
the Rebellion comic run comes after A New Hope? Okay, I didn't realize that.
But the Empire comic run comes after A New Hope. The Rebellion comic started before A New Hope.
Yeah.
Started before, but I'm pretty sure continues to after. Did you get Luke and everything in Rebellion as well?
That's confusing.
So is it?
I mean, it's the
timeline the Empire back to Rebellion,
because I go straight from the radio drama to it turning into the Empire comic run in my list here. But it is a little bit of time. The Rebellion comic run goes for a bit with Luke and that in there, and then it turns into the Empire comic run. I think because then they wanted to tell some stories from the Empire point of view.
Oh, you mean the okay? Because I was going to say I thought the Empire comics started earlier. And you're saying there's an overlap?
Sense. Yeah, there's a bit of overlap.
Oh, okay. That's what you're saying. Because I was like, I'm pretty sure the Empire comics go much
there's
earlier.
Empire stories in the Rebellion comic run.
Yeah.
The two kind of overlap a lot. Timeline. Once the Rebellion comics start, they kind of overlap a lot.
Yeah, you can see a definitive expanded universe timeline on callumscantina.com if you want to see the exact placement.
Nice plug. Nice plug.
I mean, I just jumped the entire I just lumped the entire group together, so I didn't specify that.
Yeah.
I swear that Rogue Leader is before. Well, Rogue Leader is before A New Hope, I would have thought, but. Yeah, Rebellion, I'm pretty sure, starts off with Luke. I thought Rebellion was after, but either way.
So I did include the Emperor's Hand books, Allegiance and Choices of One.
Oh, interesting.
I included those because you establish Mara with those in her Imperial days, like you actually establish her in the Empire with those ones.
I love those books, but I don't agree that they're essential because we get all the relevant information in the Thrawn trilogy of she was the hand of the Emperor, she went and did missions for him, she's this kind of sort of Jedi-ish type person with a lightsaber that did things.
I mean, it's not necessarily about Mara specifically. It's about the concept of the hands in general, and you get a little bit more.
It does explore it a little bit more.
Yeah, that's kind of why I chose them.
But
I mean, we could maybe remove allegiance. Like, as far as I'm concerned, I think choice one is the.
But you can't have one without the other, though. It's a series.
That's true.
It's a trilogy.
So,
It's a bit like we've been putting the other trilogies and everything together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
think everyone should read those, but I don't know if they're essential.
Right.
Because
like,
it
that's
goes
the thing.
into
I'm not
how far
quite
is your
sure.
line on how much extra information you're going to be trying to fill in
Well,
to support everything else.
The thing is that Mara's an essential character is kind of where I was thinking is that, like, well, because, like, the Han Solo trilogy, we're including that partly because of mainly because of Han Solo. And so to me, like, I kind of want to establish Mara, like, I want to get Mara established in the Empire, who she was at that time. Because while we get, yes, the relevant information of where she comes from, we don't really see it outside of these books, because the next important moment for her life is by the Emperor's Hand, which is the comic series. And that's not really... I don't know that I would call that essential.
No,
because that's just because we know where that ends
dealing
up.
with some of the aftermath, and that's where it's like the Han Solo trilogy for me. I only had the third one in consideration in my separate list because of the Death Star plans mainly.
Well, but
that's fair.
I just go back to what Jeff said with it being you get to see how the galaxy is through the lens of Han Solo. You get to see the Empire's functions. You get
that
to
helped
see
a lot
Imperial
too.
Academy. All of that. And like I said, with like the Hutt clans and things, I feel like the whole Han Solo trilogy, but like with
it helps expand the lore too with all of the Tlandatil cults and things and all of that.
With this duology of Mara, I mean, I guess I'm trying to find a way to argue for it. I guess it would showcase kind of the first Imperial descent against the atrocities that are happening under the Empire. You have the Hand of Judgment Squad defecting because their ISB officers ordered them to massacre civilians that were innocent. And them being like, the Empire is not something we want to go against. We want to keep the Empire. The Empire is good, structured, ordered. We just need to weed out the bad components of it, which is honestly my opinion of the Empire. I'm very pro-Empire.
You're very Pelian.
Yeah, very, very Pelian's Empire and Thrawn's Confederacy. And the Hand of Judgment are... I feel like if I were in that era, I would hope that I would be them and not be just an Imperial that went along with the atrocities.
It does give you an insight into the command structure a bit more and the power that the Emperor's hands actually had.
Right.
That actually does too, because we get a mention of the Emperor's hands with like Roganda Ismara and like all the way in the whatever that trilogy is later on, the Callista trilogy or something around that. And so this kind of gives you more information about what a hand is, I guess.
Right.
Compared to the
like that's the thing. Like that's what I was getting at. Like you kind of really get the idea of how the hands operated, and obviously that they were totally ignorant of each other. The 8 of them that existed. The Emperor had 8 hands at least. It might have been more.
They totally went concubines, guys.
No.
There were a couple of male ones, so I mean, unless Palpatine was really
Palpatine don't
discriminate.
He doesn't discriminate.
I had a stroke there.
He only discriminates against aliens.
Well, see, no, that's not true, because you have the non-human thing, the orders of the Empire, where it's the capital H in human, and then the capital M in human. They talked about that. Where,
and
like,
you have
Imperials...
Trioculus and Triclops.
No, you don't.
Yeah, but they're okay. Then the next thing I have
for that, yeah.
Okay.
You included Hand of Judgment.
We've got
Okay.
this on the general list because of it building up stuff that is going to be relevant later, especially to understand Imperial Hand stuff.
Okay.
And
Hand of Judgment.
some of the
Okay,
play
we'll include that.
between Mara and Vader and that kind of thing.
Yeah, we're just referring to both of these books as Hand of Judgment. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
the
okay.
duology.
Sorry.
They are
I
the
didn't
Hand
realize
of
the
Judgment
actual.
duology.
Yeah.
Because I
Okay.
checked it.
Okay.
And it's
Okay. I didn't realize that there was like an actual title for them as a pair.
Yes, there is.
Okay. So okay, so I'm just gonna fix that. The next thing I've got is Splinter of the Mind's Eye.
Okay.
So I like, and I put a little asterisk. I only include that because it's the beginning of the EU.
You do get a lot that recurs in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi with the same kind of concepts used and ideas.
Would it be
But
almost
really-
rude of me to do the reverse of what we usually do? Because usually, and Cal, you do this, is where you say the novel is like the definitive version. Is this one where I might almost say the comic is the definitive version? Because despite having less meat to it, being a comic, it was written after the fact where they tried to retrofit it to actually fit the EU as a whole. So they took out some of the really awkward stuff, like Luke and Leia being a bit too close.
That's right. We have that in the Marvel comics too.
Yeah.
So
No, but those don't count.
no.
Yeah, I
So,
do have the that's why I did specify the comics by Terry Austin.
Yeah. So if I was going to add Spirit of the Mind's Eye, I'd almost be more inclined to add the comic over the novel for once. And I think that's any time where that actually happens. But
that's fine.
Yeah, I can see the argument for that.
I might amend mine to specify the comic.
But like, do we include Splinter of the Mind's Eye?
No, I don't think so because it.
Well, you'd have to ask yourself, what does it add to the lore then? Like, if we just took away the fact that we clearly don't like it very much.
I quite enjoyed
really
the novel. I was just trying to think of what actually happens, and does that add to the overall events of the timeline?
Like, unless we start wedging in the Marvel comics, I'm pretty sure it's the first time Vader and Luke and Leia actually like are physically within spitting distance of each other.
Right.
Like, I'm pretty sure it's the first time they really clash lightsabers, so to speak.
Doesn't Leia duel Vader in that?
Yeah.
So I guess we could argue that's the first kind of hint at her Jedi powers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Huh.
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously just because of the proximity to that crystal giving all these extra powers and everything out. But at the same time, that's the first glimpse we get.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, and it does bolster all of them, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So.
But if she didn't have latent Jedi powers, then she wouldn't have been able to do anything.
Yeah, it's like a multiplier.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the fact that she was even able to hold her own even for a minute, like
against an enhanced Vader.
Right, against an enhanced Vader. I mean, that should speak to her raw Force sensitivity. Like, this is very clearly his daughter.
Yeah.
Well, there is a possibility of there's some plenty of other people that could be strong Force sensitives and not know it.
Right. But like that like I'm just saying, like the fact that she could hold her own against him that easily with that.
I think
obviously that's not necessarily the case, but it ended up being the case.
The only that would be to me the only way you could include it as essential is just as a glimpse at who Leia can become as a Jedi.
Yeah, the only other thing was it would be on the misconception list because of Kyber Crystal.
Yeah.
True, that does eliminate
yeah.
that issue.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
But then you also have the establishment way back in Tales of the Jedi where they're referring to all of them catch-all as Adegan crystals and that. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they're referred to as Indigan crystals pretty much throughout the EU, all well into the prequels, and even a little bit in some of the newer, like later New Republic stuff, and some Legacy.
It's fairly consistent once it's been established.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah.
So that one's sort of on the fence.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have anything after that before Empire?
I don't.
Before Empire. I think what else goes in there. I mean, obviously, we're just scratching the entire Marvel Comics run by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
Honestly, the only reason I would consider it is because of Lumaya, and and outside of that, there's not really.
Yeah, if we're not breaking up comic runs, that's 107 issues. Unless you also
Just
include
to get to
108.
her.
That there's a lot of stuff that I'm like, well, I wouldn't really want to include that. Although there is some parts of it that you'd have to divide up the individual issues, like the escape
Right, and then
that'll take. If you're taking the Lumia or Lumaya stuff, you have to go from when Cheryl Bree was introduced and include all of those issues.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the secondary issue too is how much importance do we put on lore of stuff, because it's the birthplace of a lot of alien species.
Yeah.
It's where a lot of factions first came to, planets first came in, which got used later.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there is a lot of EU first just scattered throughout those Marvel comics.
Unfortunately, that is true.
But
that's one of the
so
things
much
I didn't
of that
really
gets
consider.
swept aside.
Yeah.
Like
a lot of it does.
The
get
Marvel
swept
Comics
aside.
run gets just swept into the S canon, and they just ignore it, or they retcon the piss out of it.
Yeah,
they do. Honestly, Lumia's backstory is probably the least affected of everything in those comics.
Yeah,
yeah.
Because they just
that stays consistent.
Weirdly,
and how
they
Han
left her
lost the money
storyline pretty much
to pay Jabba off.
Well, yeah.
Again, I mean, as much as I personally love the old Marvel comics, by the same token, I imagine there'd be a lot of people who were introduced to her through the novels who probably didn't realize she ever existed prior to that in the comics. Like, that was unessential. Yeah. They're that unessential.
Right. I didn't know about those comics until I first read about her in Legacy of the Force, Fate of the Jedi, or Legacy of the Force.
Because it's like, that's the birthplace of him using the Shoto lightsaber. It's the introduction of the light whip. You've got a lot of cool stuff with that. But then that's where you start dissecting, okay, how much of it are you going to include?
But if we include that because of all of the ideas and things that germinate there, we would have to include every West End Games RPG source book, because that is Star Wars. That created Star Wars.
That's the foundation.
It did. And that is kind of the hard part where we have to kind of figure out.
I don't think anyone should just go and read all those RPG source books.
No.
Like, that's going to be boring.
Oh, why not?
No.
I love them, but
if you love the EU, yes, but they're not essential.
No, but that still pulls back to my real prior point. One of my first points is like, everything begets something. Like, they're all linked somewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
The first thing here came from there. Like, if we start looking at that, then the entirety of it is essential. Everything's essential, which obviously can't be the case.
Well, that's
but it's all essential.
This goes with like anything, though. If you're reading Lord of the Rings, if you can't just like pick certain lines, you have to look at the whole Middle Earth as a whole. If you're reading the Bible, you can't just cherry pick quotes out of the Bible. You have to look at the Bible as a whole. It's everything is essential, but some things are more essential than others, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. Well, to use your Bible analogy, like everything in there is obviously essential and has meaning. But by the same token, if you want to give someone a brief overview, if you don't have the time to just give them the whole Bible, you'd have to pick out 10, 12, 20 passages that really surmise some really important points and really important learnings. And that's kind of the same here. It's like the entire EU is important and worth reading, but if this is trying to introduce a new fan to it, you need to knock out the essentials.
Or you have a new fan that goes, okay, what do I need to read to be able to get a general understanding of what happens? And then you can give them a list and then go...
Like, this would be a really different video if we said what are the 10 essential novels. Suddenly we'd have to do a lot more nitpicking. The fact that we've just gone what's essential and left it open is why we have such
10 essential novels. I don't think we could narrow that down.
No.
But that's just it, though. Like, if you said 10... you'd suddenly be stuck at a pretty heavy crossroad.
Man,
that's
like I've already whittled down a little bit from that.
I whittled
from
down
what I had.
As well, and I went very bare bones.
Here's the thing. Like, I mean, I know we're not to the New Republic yet. Like, we've just approached Empire, but like I've already eliminated the Aaron Alston X-Wing novels. Totally.
Yeah,
because
I did that too.
I don't think I even put them because I love them. You don't need them.
No. Yeah. So, okay. So we're officially determining not to include the original Marvel Comics run.
Think so, but for people's reference, there's a lot of stuff like if you, for example, the Lemire thing. If you end up getting to Legacy of the Force, which we probably will keep as essential. Then to get her backstory, you go into the old Marvel comics to find that.
Oh, but and there's so much because there was a newspaper comics as well. There's these as the old Droids animated series, the Ewoks animated series. There's comics involved there.
There's too much that you would have to like include at a certain point. What do we consider essential? Empire Strikes Back.
Well, we continue equivalents of the movies being the radio dramas, because that'd make sense.
Yeah, that's
I'm fine with that. Like, I don't think the radio drama for Empire is necessarily adding a whole lot.
No, A New Hope was where it added a lot.
We could even then just say, okay, here's the movie, have a placeholder there, and just say, all right, you've watched the movie, that's enough.
The novel isn't particularly special. The comic obviously is just the comic. It's the movie boiled down to a full-parter.
And which comic? Because you've got the classic Marvel and the Dark Horse.
It does feel like The Empire Strikes Back is the most complete across every medium. Like it doesn't feel like there's anything like even when. Like, there's stuff in the novelization that's added, but nothing is, like, lore-breaking. It's kind of just there. You know, the audio drama adds a little bit, but not really much more than the novel. You know, the comic adds, like, virtually nothing. You know, like, The Empire Strikes Back is, like, the least bothered, which is very unusual for the second part of a trilogy. Usually the second one is usually the weakest. In the case of these ones, it's actually the strongest in every area. Which is funny to say, but I genuinely believe it is the strongest. And I say this as someone whose favorite original trilogy movie is Return of the Jedi.
But yeah, I'm fine with just going, let's have the movie here. Because do we want to specify which version of the movie?
I don't think so, because even the modified. Well, yes, the original, because there's hardly any difference between that and the '97 edition. There's very little change. It's like the least affected, and the 2004 edition is just the 2004 edition is the most insulting. Like that's
the only good change I can think of was they touched up the Empress hologram.
That's it, but they kind of ruined the dialogue that you're given in the original. that I was like, why are we making this scene go on longer? There was no reason to extend that scene. Well, they gave Ian more lines. They gave Ian more lines than they gave the original actor. So like, why are we giving Ian longer lines and giving him like this whole like big long thing when the original was very short, concise, to the point, and we moved on to the next scene? No, we've added 5 minutes. I'm exaggerating, but
it's funny though, because this is the first time we've ever really considered it. And I know we've just moved on to Empire Strikes Back, but I'm rewinding slightly. Is I've only just noticed how little media there actually is between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. Like, there's a lot happens, but it's all in short stories and short comics and snippets in game books and stuff. Like, there's actually now that I think about it, there's not really an awful lot of big punchy Shadows of the Empire kind of things going on.
No, there's a lot of smaller stuff.
There's a lot, but it's all little.
Yeah.
Yeah, and none of it's like major.
And especially like the classic Marvel comics, they were basically just doing stuff that didn't really change the status quo and stuff a lot because they left it open for
and then stuff that was written on a bit later as Empire Strikes Back was starting to come out. It's just them looking for a new rebel base. So like, we better leave Yavin, we're going to go over here. But yeah, even though there's a lot, nothing huge or substantial really.
Even some of the later novels that came out that take place in between, there's not a whole lot there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's nothing. I mean, I've never really thought of that.
Yeah, it is interesting to think
about. I'm going to look back here.
Yeah.
What's going on back here? Yeah. Huh. Can't see that. I'm just looking at my shelf going, hang on. Yeah. Oh, well. I don't have anything.
Yeah. Yeah. So then obviously we've got Shadows of the Empire.
Yeah, that's what I was including for sure.
Yes, I've got that. The novelization.
You need to include that. That's actually a good point. If you've seen the movies, that is a good starting point. If you've seen the original trilogy, that is a great starting point.
Yeah.
How much of the multimedia project would you include then?
I mean, personally, I think I personally think the novel is essential. I would say that everything that the comics are okay are like that's an okay thing. But I would say that the novel's essential. The game's good, but I don't think it's as
and especially being
important.
dated now, it can be a barrier for some people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's
I
not really
I would never consider the game to be.
No. Yeah, the
No,
comic is fine, but
and the young reader or whatever they refer to it as, the
young reader version is pretty good.
It's pretty good, but yeah, if you read the adult novel, you got everything. There's not like the young reader.
The only thing that the young reader added for me was the pronunciation of Shizor.
Nice.
Not what is it that what's his face?
Daniel Davis.
How's Mark Thompson?
Mark Thompson. He and virtually everybody who is not reading the pronunciation guide, the way they all say it is Zizor.
Yeah, that's how I was reading it for the whole of the adult novel, and then I read the junior novel and went, oh.
Yeah.
I always called it like Zixer or something like that.
Zizzer. Yeah. Well, I would have pronounced it Zizor if I hadn't seen the X is supposed to be pronounced she, which is actually a thing. When we transcribe Chinese and Japanese, they're she sounding letters. We always put XI.
Yeah, which is interesting to know.
When we're transliterating.
So the Failene
I never understood
Chinese...
why.
There we go.
Basically. Notice every other Faline in the entirety of of the EU. Every other name is very clear on how to pronounce it. It's very clear. It is pronounced the way that it is spelled.
They learned from the lesson.
Yeah.
But yeah, Shadows of the Empire.
Same with Timothy Zahn with Sabayoth.
Here is Schneezel's family: Bob, Margaret, and Jane.
They are. It is very like Yep.
Yeah, I was including Shadows of the Empire as essential mainly because there's so much of the background connecting pieces into Return of the Jedi. And
it's very
direct
important
from George Lucas, so
it is.
Ironically enough, has it even had a Essentials re-release yet? By the way,
yes, it has. I listened to the audio audiobook. It's actually very good. It's very good. It is Mark Thompson, and he is pronouncing it correctly throughout the novel.
Whoa!
They told it. They gave him the pronunciation guide and said, "Hey, you have to pronounce it this way."
Wow!
Grabbing
because he does pronounce it right in the Hand of Thrawn duology. So I was surprised when I heard him pronounce it wrong in the X-Wing novels. I was like, what? Why is he pronouncing it wrong?
That's just like Ginger. That's just like Ginger.
Oh my God, Warlord Ginger. I'm like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's like he's like skipping the Z for no reason. And it's like, what?
Here we go.
Like, well, you should hear the way he says Yuuzhan Vong.
Nice.
He said, yeah. Oh, nice.
Very nice. Yeah.
Yeah, he says he says Yuuzhan Vong, Yuzhang Vong. Like he's trying to make the ZH into an SH. It sounds weird.
I've heard people say that before. Usually,
that's why it's usually people who are influenced by Mark Thompson's reading. I don't agree with it, but yeah, that's why.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway,
the only thing I thought after Shadows of the Empire was Return of the Jedi, which I've also marked as the original theatrical cut. As long as you're able to view it. But I mean, if people don't have access to it, they don't have access to it.
Right. So for Return of the Jedi, are we just sticking with the movie? Do we want to include the audio drama?
I would. Radio drama was fun.
Okay, so the radio drama for Return of the Jedi. Obviously, we are not including the novelization. There is so much in that it's just.
Nor are we including
lore breaking,
freaking goofy George Lucas re-edits.
Oh heck no!
Yeah.
Oh god!
We need Lapty Neck. We need Lapty.
No.
That I'll disagree with that one, but
I do like Lapty Neck better than Jedi Rocks.
I mean I like Jedi Rocks, but I've never heard Lapty Neck. But I prefer the '90s version, without Hayden and without the bizarre Vader. No, no, absolutely not. That the first time I saw the 2004 version, it was 2006, by the way, when I saw that. It was. I didn't see it for 2 years, and I still have my 90s edition. And I prefer that because I prefer Jedi Rocks, and I prefer the more CGI figures of Sly and what's his name? I forget.
The lead singer that they added in for Jedi Rocks.
Yeah, him. Yeah. Those two. Was he not? Does he not sing in Lapty Neck?
He's not in the original. That edited him.
He's not in there.
Just for the special editions.
Okay, I thought he would. I thought they had a puppet for him originally. Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because like I like Sai's CG look a little bit better. I've seen the puppet I think she looks better in the CG. Of course, in the 90s CG. Because they did something in the 2000s CG that just looks wrong. I don't know why.
See,
but it does.
I don't even want the 90s version. I just want the original version of it.
Okay, that's fair. I respect that.
The original trilogy theatrical versions are, in my opinion, the only way to watch them. They ruined the Ewok song in the new ones. They've got all these weird, crappy CGI things on screen that I don't want to look at.
Again, that's mostly the 2004 version.
Yeah, and then you've got the stuff like back on Empire Strikes Back, like where they changed the Wampa scene to where you see the whole Wampa and it's not even scary anymore. It's stupid. And
I will agree with that one being an issue in the 90s.
Most of the other episode 5 changes I'm okay with, but I don't need them.
That's fair. And most of them are minor anyway.
Right. Well, they added like Tamara Morrison's voice for Boba Fett to connect that with the prequels.
I'm not a fan of that.
That's fine, but I don't care.
I'm not a fan of it, but I don't hate it. Yeah, I definitely prefer that. Like, honestly, I like the 90s version. It's a nice middle ground.
Anyway, to bring us back...
Yeah.
to the topic at hand, so we're not going on a tangent for another half an hour.
So, my next one is the Truce at Bakura. That's what I got.
Yep.
So before we go too far past the Return of the Jedi, we could also just throw it out there. Think of the Ewok movies.
No.
Yeah. we can think about them. We can think about it. Yeah.
Done. Yeah.
I thought about
it. No. I appreciate them for what they are, but no.
I've never watched them. I don't know if I will.
I've seen clips. And they're not enough to convince me that they're worthwhile.
Correct.
I just hate how expensive they are now.
They are expensive.
I'm glad I got my copy because every time I look on, I've had a copy for a while now. And I got it.
Yeah, you don't want that.
No, the eBay prices are ridiculous. I don't understand.
Yeah,
it could not have been that rare of a release.
I've gone, nah, it's not worth that much. I have a digital copy. I'm good.
Right.
Yeah, Truce at Bakura then. Because a lot of the Ewok movies are just self-contained on Endor anyway, so it's not a huge amount. Really.
Right.
Galaxy.
Oh, they're not terrible, actually. They come down in price. Just had a quick look. They actually come down a little bit. That's nice.
Okay.
That
so Truce at Bakura. Yeah. So the Truce at Bakura, are we oh wait. I forgot. X-Wing Rogue Leader. Are we counting those comics? I forgot to bring those up earlier.
Well, it depends if we're going to include the X-Wing novels at all further down the line, because if you're going to include those novels and having the Rogue Squadron comics would be good, and if you're going to have the Rogue Squadron comics and then having Rogue Leader would be good, and so forth.
I think the X-Wing series stands on its own as well, so you could say that. Because I only if you're talking about the X-Wing comics, I included the first 4, which is like the taking of Coruscant and the whole deal with the major shift in power from that. Which is a major event.
Yeah. That stuff's nice, but I don't think you necessarily need it because you get the backstory of like, oh, the Republic took Coruscant. Okay, cool. Like you don't necessarily need to see it.
Okay.
I wish we did actually see it in a book, but sadly we don't. We get snippets of it in the Rogue Squadron things.
Right.
All of the paperwork and a lot of the stuff that they did, and then it's kind of skimmed over. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Unfortunately,
which is not the only time that happens in Star Wars.
So so you guys would say not really for the comics then.
I
really like them, but
okay, great.
That's fair. Oh, they
Yeah,
are.
they are really good.
They are. I'm not saying that. I just wanted to see if we wanted to include them as essential. That's
I
fine.
think so.
Okay, so True Sepakura, we're kind of in agreement on, right?
Well,
I
funny
didn't have
enough,
True Bakura, but
Okay.
funny enough, I have True Bakura to start with for a similar reason to why we should have included Rogue Leader, but I just like that it really tacks on to like the next day, like that's the thing. But then that's what Rogue Leader did as well. Rogue Leader was the next day. They're literally putting out, fires across Endor.
And we did a
Right.
similar thing with Revenge of the Sith as well, with the Dark Lord, the Rise of Darth Vader.
Yeah, where it's like literally like the next day sort of thing. I like that. Probably also the way that the Empire, not as a whole, obviously. Oh, there's a dog. He's going. Is how they're dealing with the loss of the Emperor. Like they don't even believe them at first. How this fallout's going to happen because the rebellion has successfully rebelled, and now it's just standing there as the ashes of the Death Star are falling, going, "Oh, hang on."
Menacingly.
Right.
menacingly.
Just thinking to themselves, "Are like, what do we do? Like, we actually, you got to start a government out of this. Like, it's we've just been a bunch of ragtag rebels on a and now we've got to actually run this. We've got to deal with this."
Yeah, you have the Empire having this like oh shit moment of our command structure is in flux now, and the Emperor's gone. What do we do? Who's in charge? You have the Empire beginning to fragment, and then you have the Alliance being like, oh, we have to like do things now. We can't just like we can't just like shoot stormtroopers anymore. There's like a whole another thing we have to do now.
Yeah.
So I didn't include that, but I think True Sabakura should be. That makes sense to me. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it keeps getting referenced in future novels too, so it makes sense.
Well, Gariel turns up again.
Yeah.
Much further down the line.
And it sort of like shows the beginning of the reunification process of the galaxy.
Right. Yeah. And then I have now I do have Jedi Knight Dark Forces 2. I have that in there. Which is partly why I wanted to include Dark Forces. Because I remembered now why I wanted it. Because Dark Forces 2, you do have that resolution on Rusan. With the Valley of the Jedi and all that. Like freeing the spirits from the remainder of the thought bomb and all that. So that is kind of where I would say it's
also
helpful.
And to a large part of the Inquisitorius.
Okay.
Yeah, and that
I'm on board now.
So, okay. Because I forgot that was the reasoning behind the Dark Forces stuff. That was why I kept it in my list of stuff. That was why. Because while Dark Forces itself isn't as essential as the Han Solo trilogy or even the Death Star novel, it is vital to Dark Forces 2, which is a resolution of something that happened 1,000 years ago. Plus, you deal with the Inquisitorius more significantly. It's one of the biggest points of that is that you deal with the remainder of the Inquisitorius. Not all of it, obviously, but a good chunk of it, one of the primary factions.
And if we're going to include Coruscant Knights partially because of the Inquisition's formation, we have to have the fall of the Inquisition as this important thing.
Which, again, hasn't even fully dissolved.
But, like, I don't really care so much about the resolution of Rusan, because I see that more as a focus, like Rusan just being the Rusan Reformations and the formation of the Rule of Two and the Sith and things. I don't really necessarily care so much about the thought bomb, like
that's fair
Force Spirit stuff. But we did include all of that, so it makes sense to have a resolution. I can see what you're saying.
Right.
So it's a twofer. It does both.
Right. That's what I mean. Like it's kind of like it kind of it kind of ties into a lot of stuff that's come before, and like it ties into a lot of that in a way that I would say is kind of vital. Maybe not the thought bomb. It's not necessarily something that needs to be resolved, but we do have that. It's there in that orb, and we do have that. We do have that there at the end of in Rule of Two at the beginning of the novel. But
yeah, and it's not so much that storyline is going like, we're a lot of these other ones are going, okay, we're going to need this for the future novels that come out or the future series. That's not what this one does. This one's retroactively doing things.
Right.
So, yeah.
Like, because this was there already, and then they put that into the comic, and then formally into the novels later. So,
so that would be probably the primary version would be Dark Forces, Rebel Agent, and Jedi Knight. Those are the two that cover that storyline more.
Okay.
Which
Yeah. All right.
makes more sense in the game because it's one of those ones where the gameplay for Jedi Outcast and Jedi Academy is great, but then using a lightsaber in Dark Forces 2 was so weird.
I'm gonna play that again.
Yeah. Okay.
I never really vibed with those games. They were too clunky for me.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we've already determined. So for the X-Wing books, are we good with just the Michael Stackpole books?
So X-Wing would start.
I don't think we need any of them.
Era proper, because I have the era marker start with Shadows of Mindor, where they first start calling it the New Republic.
Oh, I didn't even have Shadows of Mindor. Well, do we want to include Shadows of Mindor?
Very fun read. I'm not sure about essential.
I don't think it's essential.
About essential either.
Fun read.
Okay.
Yeah, I like Shadows of Mindor.
Yeah.
I have no problem with it. I didn't feel like it was necessary. It felt like it just kind of there.
It also was framed in a way that it could be true, it could be not. So that in my mind already questions how essential it is.
Oh, see, I love that it's a holodrama that we are reading the script of. I think that's fantastic.
Oh, okay.
Because it, it references all this stuff from S canon with the old Marvel comics and all this stuff, and it's like, is all this stuff true or not? Who cares? It doesn't matter. This is a holodrama, and I love it.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, it's great. I just go essential to understand the events. Probably not.
No, not at all.
It's fun.
Jedi Prince.
Okay.
No.
No. Much as I like Ken and Trioculus, I don't care much for Triclops. He's kind of a lame character. For being the Emperor's son, he's actually quite lame. Yeah, I actually like Trioculus.
The only good thing out of the entire series is Moffs having a conference is called a Moffrence. That is stupid, and I love it.
And Hudson's right.
Yes,
that's stupid, and I hate it.
We absorb the Hut. We do a stat. Well, we do a stat. No. It is established in the outer lore that Zorba has a weird
human
mutation.
Fetishism.
No, he has a weird he has a weird mutation that allows him to grow a beard. And because he doesn't and because he's not going to shave, he braids his beard.
Nah. Zorba doesn't exist.
I mean, I'm willing to accept that Zorba exists. I'm not willing to accept that he actually looks like that.
There's that, yeah.
Yeah. No.
Right, so
no, he does not look like that.
Kind of back around to the X-Wing novels.
Yeah. So
I don't think X-Wing's essential because it's just following these fighter pilots on missions. It's not really it's a good like look into the life of a New Republic pilot, I guess. But and they fight in these like conflicts and things, but
you do get a bit more of Wedge, which is kind of nice. But again, I don't necessarily think I don't necessarily think it's essential. My only argument for essentialness is it establishes the character. These establish the character of Corran Horn. Yeah. That's my main argument. It also establishes what's going on Coruscant during this time frame.
Mm-hmm. Also, do we have anything else that shows the Imperial propaganda, like the Imperial Museum?
Not that I'm aware of.
I don't think so. I think that does come directly from X-Wing.
Yeah, I think that's all.
Fair.
I think
that's a fair, good overarching thing.
Yeah, I think those are the 3 points that are that make it essential to me. Because Corran becomes such a significant player. In the later storylines,
that Corran's story doesn't need to have X-Wing because we have iJedi.
That is true.
But I'm not going to include iJedi.
I'm not either.
I would skip iJedi altogether because we really don't need his entire backstory. We don't need his entire family history. We get the gist of it we get the basics of it in the X-Wing books, and then there's some references to it in later stories, and we don't need any more than that. So iJedi is the most Corran focused story.
So I'm thinking about how I'd whittle this down a bit more. So if I take it around the main taking of Coruscant part, and then it also still establishes Corran a bit. It's not great, but you would just take like the 3rd and 4th books.
Well, I feel like you could just narrow it down to Rogue Squadron books, right?
Yeah,
right. No, that's why I said
4.
the. Yeah, none of the Alston books at all, and even the later, there's like 2 more Rogue Squadron ones.
Yeah, but no, not those.
And those aren't that
Starfighters
good. They're okay.
Was fairly good, but it's not really important in the whole scheme of things.
Right.
The only thing Starfighters of Adamar sets up is Pelion's the whole Empire Confederacy type thing, and like how they're pushed back to a certain point, and him establishing things. So
and then there's
geopolitics are pretty important in that one.
Then there's Izar's Revenge, which again I don't think is necessary.
The first 4 X-Wing books, Rogue Squadron, Wedge's Gamble, Kratos Trap, Back to War, those are the ones I've been considering.
Those are the ones that I think are important. And then I have Courtship.
Fine with that.
After that, I jump right to Courtship from that one.
I don't know if I would consider Courtship. I never even thought about that one.
Well, it establishes Han and Leia getting married.
It also establishes the death of Miriam.
Oh, you're right.
And it also establishes Hapes. These are all vital moving forward.
Also, I have to agree with your marriage comment because I'm going to use this in my favor later on for Union. So
nice.
Yeah.
Well, I want Union anyway, so
yeah, we're all in agreement on that. I think.
I think we're all in agreement on Union.
Now, Union's more than just that, but
right.
Yeah.
But
so is Courtship. Courtship has a lot of junk in it. It's about half junk and half stuff that's established further down the line.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm fine with that.
Oh, yeah, I knew I forgot something You're here earlier.
I went to the Thrawn
Yeah, I
trilogy
forgot
after
to put.
Courtship.
I forgot. I did include Tatooine Ghost. But I honestly, it's kind of a weak one for me. I wasn't like
I
really
found it
gunning
was
for
just a
it.
connecting piece to the prequels, and it's like, okay, yeah.
Yeah, it
gives
just kind of ties.
It's a little too
gives
convenient.
Leia a little bit of closure in regards to who Anakin was before he was Vader.
Yeah,
Which
right. That's about all it does.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just feels too convenient of a story, though.
I mean, it
Yeah.
also introduces Thrawn to Han and Leia for the first time, but they don't know who he is. They know that there's
Because
someone
they
new in
can't.
charge. Yeah, well, they can't know at that time. Yeah, they know for well there is some new Grand Admiral out there, or at the very least an Admiral out there who seems to have an interest in art that is running the Empire, or his Empire at least, differently. And so they get to know all that. So it's their introduction to Thrawn without actually knowing who he is.
Right.
But apart from that, again, that doesn't necessarily mean it's essential. It just means it's another tidbit.
Okay. Yeah, I
mean,
just included it because I wanted to bring it up.
Yeah.
Okay, then it's the Thrawn trilogy after
Absolutely.
Probably not. I don't think many people like it.
that. It's
Nothing
the most
important
hated
happens.
thing.
Nothing important-
It's the most hated storyline. It's only the rebirth of the EU, you know.
Nothing there to see. Nothing there to see.
Yeah.
Moving on. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously the Thrawn trilogy, we're all in agreement on that.
Yeah.
And specifically not the comics. The comics do some weird things.
Yeah, read the novels.
Yeah, they do.
Because the comics
Yeah.
cut out a lot anyway, and you want all the details.
Yeah, they do cut things out weirdly, and then there are like random things
Random
that
bits and
they
pieces.
did
Like, what? Why is that there?
made no sense.
Yeah, it's like Judder Page is like an alien instead of a human, and
which he's clearly stated to be a human in the books, which makes no sense. Like it's very clear he's human in the books, so it's like, why is he an alien? You know, and also I don't like the way the Bothans look in those comics.
Yeah, there's a lot
I don't
of
like
different
Bothans.
interpretations of Bothans. But of course, the Bothan we see is Boss Failure, so I don't like how he looks anyway.
Yeah, I just don't like Bothans.
I mean, I think he looks better in the later depictions.
Oh, yeah.
But
I think they did that. They had a more uniform look for them because Star Wars Galaxies ended up taking a lot of the different sources for Bothans and trying to merge them together.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
The Empire really should have just blew up Bothawi.
Right? Like
They
the
would've
moment,
saved
like,
them, squad members,
like right after Kamas, they should have just blown up the Bothans to save themselves the headache of the PR that those Bothans were, like the PR those Bothans were causing. They should have just blown up Bothui.
They should have just blown it up anyway because of Borskvalia. He's annoying.
I was playing X-Wing Alliance and I'm like, look, I just have to destroy his shuttle a couple of times. So
He's just that annoying.
Oh man. Yeah. So then I have Dark Empire and Empire's End.
Yeah.
You
Totally fair.
know,
that
the whole trilogy.
Dark Empire's garbage.
It's not the greatest storyline, but you do have Anakin being born, and you do have the establishment of certain characters that come to significance later. I'm trying to think.
I will begrudgingly go along with this, but I hate that story so much.
It's one of those.
You shouldn't love it.
I'm
not saying you should love it.
Read it once, and then you know what happens, type thing.
Yeah. Well, it also establishes Ossus, and the people living there, as well.
Yeah. And this time period, I guess, because then that'd connect together with Tales of the Jedi.
And
Yeah.
then
It also
another
brings back.
super
It also brings back the
weapon.
Inquisitors. It continues the Inquisitors a little bit. You know,
Somehow Jarek survived.
I mean,
yes.
right. Oh God. At least they didn't do that.
Yeah. At least it's,
I will say, I am not going to include Crimson Empire. In this, I don't think that's necessary. As much as I like the backstory that it gives us for the the Imperial Guard, I don't think it's necessary. I just don't.
No, it doesn't
I
matter.
Found it's like extra background, but more like a side story about one of the characters.
Right. It's not necessary in my opinion.
Like, we know the Emperor's Royal Guard are these like elite troopers that are awesome bodyguards. We don't need to know why. It doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah. That's all we need to know.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I like the story. It's good. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Crimson Empire, much better than Dark Empire. Sadly, Dark Empire is more essential.
But then if you don't read Crimson Empire, the Royal Guard spend most of the time just standing there.
Yeah. It's true.
So they're warriors. Yeah.
But you see the ones that, like,
you've got to put Crimson in.
Yeah, right. You see the ones in Return or Revenge of the Sith where they like pull their poles at Yoda and then he just like takes them out like they're nothing.
Slumps them.
Yeah.
So then the next thing I have is Jedi Academy.
Yeah, that's what I have next as well.
Yes.
Yep, the Jedi Academy trilogy.
Because it shows how Luke changes the trajectory of the Jedi Order. He doesn't want to rebuild the Jedi of old, like the stupid new canon nonsense. He wants to establish an order that is honestly more akin to like the old like Jediah or whatever, where it's a little bit more balanced. It's still not delving into the dark side, but
well, it is more. It's a little personality
more
wise. Yeah, it holds more to the Jedi of the. They're much closer to the Jedi of the Tales of the Jedi. Old Republic. Yeah. Sorry. Well, I would say the Old Republic, but it really is more Tales of the Jedi period, because if we go Knights of the Old Republic, they're already trying to phase out married Jedi, and it more Tales.
The Jedi Academy trilogy is Jedi Search, Dark Apprentice, and Champions of the Force.
Yep, they're great. You can actually get them on Amazon or wherever in a paperback book set now. With reprints.
I need to get that.
There's also
I don't have a
printing that printed them all
anymore.
together in one as well. But
I've seen that.
Yeah, I actually got the original trilogy novelizations in one volume.
I did too.
I honestly, I only got it because I want to have it, not so much because I want to read them.
Oh yeah, I'm not reading those again. I tried to read them and they were bad.
I only read A New Hope. I never read The Empire Strikes Back, or I had The Return of the Jedi, but I wanted to read The Empire Strikes Back and I never got it. And I was like, I don't want to just go right to Return of the Jedi. Like, I want to read them all in order. And then I never got it, and then I lost those two. And so I'm like, oh, okay. Now I just buy the three together.
After the Jedi Academy trilogy, since we mentioned it, that's where iJedi would be. But
you don't actually need to read Jedi.
No. We don't need to go over that again. No.
But yeah, the quick reason from me, because I think we all just went, no, we're not including it, is that there are parts that overlap with the Jedi Academy trilogy that, especially when you read
that's what I was going to say,
the other, seem way too shoehorned in and conflict, and it makes
it puts
a good book, it'd be covered. So
I'll say this: there's no reason to half the book doesn't need well, maybe not half, but like a third of the book does not need to actually be written. Honestly, like there was no reason to delve into Corrin's time there as much as he did.
You could just say Corrin was
Michael,
at the Jedi Academy during that time period. He was there.
Yeah,
I promise.
Like he literally could have said, "I was involved during this whole event of stuff, and I helped out where I could." And
and you can even make up
this
a
is what I
why
did.
he wasn't there at like the climax with like Exar Kun.
Yeah,
you could be like, he was off doing X while they were over here doing Y.
Right.
That's fine.
or he decided to leave just before that climax type thing.
Yeah. Not shoehorn him into it. Not shoehorn him into it. It makes no sense for him to be in there. And like, why is he the one blowing up the statue at the end? That made no sense. It made no sense. It felt like a mini. It felt like a novella in the middle of this novel for no reason. Like, why? If you cut that whole portion out, like, you still you have the portion that goes before it. You cut that whole portion out, and you still have between that. You have a good standard size novel.
Yeah.
Without the Jedi Academy stuff.
Yeah.
I like iJedi, but it's
I do too.
In spite of the Jedi Academy.
Oh
books.
I like
honestly,
but the
I like the stuff of him finding out his family history.
Oh yeah, because I love
and I love him finally saving his wife at the end, which took forever, and the establishing of what are they called?
Janissari?
The Janissari, yes. And the establishing of them. I like them. I like those storylines, but I don't think any of them are essential. Even moving forward, because again, like we get the basics of Corrin's family history, both in the X-Wing novels and later things that he's in. Like, we don't need the full backstory. It's nice, but it's not necessary. Here.
I don't actually believe this, but I'm gonna play devil's advocate.
Okay.
The Janissari is where we get eventually the royal guards in the legacy or the legacy comics that guard the Emperor. Because you have the Janissari, the Imperial Knights. You have the Janissari that then get trained by Jaina once she marries the Fell guy.
Jag.
Yeah, Jag Fell. And then they eventually become the Imperial Knights. So that's the only thing this has.
I mean, that's a theory. There's no clear delineation to them. I mean, I honestly could see that line.
I don't.
But at the same time, the Janissari are
Jedi Academy.
No, I don't think so either.
No,
I don't think so either.
But here's the thing: the Janissari are referenced in other places, and it's quite clear what their problem was, and it's quite clear what happened. And because I do, I mean, we're skipping ahead a little bit, but I do have the Hand of Thrawn duology on my list. Like, and in my opinion, like, there's enough of a reference to them in that's clear as to what was going on.
Yeah, that's also related to one other one we'll get to.
Yeah. Okay. So moving on. So we've established that Jedi Academy, but not iJedi. So, okay. So what do you have next, Cal?
So I had up for debate the Callista trilogy. I was sort of half and half on it.
I love them, but no. Everyone hates the Callista trilogy so much, and I don't get it. I think Barbara Hambly is great. I love her work.
There's just no reason for it.
Yeah, the only thing would be Darksaber with the Hutts trying to make a ploy at that time period. It'd probably be the main one.
Puppy.
But even that's not really necessary with
Right.
Darksaber. You have a little bit of... Isn't that the one where you have Dala and Pelion like get rid of the other warlords?
Dala was absolutely great in Darksaber.
So you could argue from that perspective of that's the realignment of the Empire.
It is actually because they come together. That was all Darksaber, I think. So that they come together and she takes control, and then Palion's left in control after defeat yet again.
Yes. I really hate that Dala only gets like the short end of the stick in all these stories because she's supposed to be this great tactician, and I love her as a character.
And she was so badass in Darksaber too.
Yeah, it almost worked. It wasn't for those pesky Jedi.
Yeah.
But I think
see, that's the part that's ruining her. She can't account for Jedi.
I think other than you start Darksaber and Luke's already being dumb because he's obsessed with Callista, you could take Darksaber as standalone.
I think if you take Darksaber as standalone, because it's not technically a proper trilogy.
Yeah,
I think it just kind of happens to I think if we just include Darksaber.
Yeah, because it's not an official trilogy. If it was an official trilogy, then I would say it's not enough on its own to keep the other two. But since it's not an official trilogy, just keep Darksaber.
Well, now the dog stopped barking, I can actually join back in. I went quiet for like 5 minutes there because he was losing his mind, and also I should probably... I might be that horrible person that says I'm going to go soon anyway. But there's always room for part 2.
Yeah, I think... I mean, we could probably stop here. We're about halfway through the New Republic, so...
And that's where it starts to get real dense anyway.
Right.
Yeah,
what if I told you guys that outside of Union, I don't have anything else marked down for the New Republic period?
I believe
I've got 3 things between Darksaber and Union now. I've got 3 things between them, and I've got a couple of things after Union. So.
Yeah,
and then what if I told you...
Because I haven't read some yet.
And what if I told you that after Union, I only have one more book in the entire rest of the timeline?
Hey, I have a series after Union.
I'm saying like until the end of the EU.
Oh yeah.
From the New Republic through Legacy. I have one more thing after Union.
Of course you do.
See what book that is, but we'll find out.
Thank you guys for joining and coming together for this. This has been fun to discuss and sort out.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
We'll have to touch on the Crystal Star.
Yeah, and some other things. I got a few things here, so...
Now you mentioned Crystal Star, now I know what Cam wanted to keep. Fair enough. Have fun.
Okay.
Awful worry.
Oh, Lord. Obey.
Yeah, and we will catch you next time on the Callum's Cantina podcast with the final part of the Essential Expanded Universe collection.
There's just that much of it. Hooroo!
That's right.
Hooroo.
There really is a lot. Have a good one, guys. See you next time.
Goodbye.
Yes, it is.
Huge thanks for hanging out at the brightest center in the galaxy. If you want to hear more, make sure to follow on the platform of your preference, be it Spotify, YouTube, or Apple Podcasts. I'm your host Callum, and this has been the Callum's Cantina podcast. Join us next time for the final part in the Essential Expanded Universe collection, where we will have a finalised list of what to read to understand the main events of each era. But for now, remember, the films are just the beginning. The expanded universe is where the galaxy truly grows into its own. See you next time when you visit the Cantina.